Barnes and Leslie, lots still to come today. Sean Mullins will be arriving soon, playing live in studio, about 9:20 this morning. And in the next segment, you're going to meet someone you've not met on our show before, Sky Estroff. She's got a podcast called Sky's the Limit. It's all about food in Atlanta. She's going to hook us up with all the openings on Thanksgiving in Atlanta. So in case you've got the fam coming, don't want to cook, she's got a nice little report to bring us of who will be open this year. So we'll talk to Sky right about 8:35. But first, we must sleaze. Brought to you by McDonald's. Best part about working at McDonald's, it's the people.
I hate to start with disturbing news, but another disturbing Sean Diddy Combs accusation. Drugging and sexually assaulting a 39-year-old man who blacked out. The plaintiff claims he was sodomized by Combs after being drugged. Yeah, he talks about going to this party with friends, given a drink. Guess what? Something was put in his drink, and he became disoriented, losing control of his body. And then the next thing he knows is he wakes up and this dark bedroom with black walls on a bed with black sheets, and realizes that Sean Diddy Combs is on top of him. This is just another awful story.
Man, these stories are on the daily. Are people queued up to bring these stories out? And how are they going to, I don't even know how they're going to dig through all of this.
I don't either, and again, it seems like it's daily. Hey, do you remember the Girls Gone Wild videos?
Do I remember? Of course I do.
Late 90s into the 2000s.
You know that dude's from Atlanta, Joe Francis. Yeah.
Those videos were everywhere, basically videotaping young girls taking off their clothes, places like Mardi Gras. After a couple of lawsuits from privacy issues using underage models, they filed Chapter 11 in 2013. Well, guess what? Now you can watch the whole thing unfold in this docuseries called Girls Gone Wild, The Untold Story, streaming on Peacock December 3rd. Also, Joe Francis agreed to an interview for the first time in a decade for this series.
It was so shocking.
It blew my mind what Joe Francis was able to convince these young girls to do.
Joe Francis was everywhere.
He's hanging out with famous people. In the first 2 years, Girls Gone Wild made $20 million.
Girls were already pulling their tops off and flashing the jet as we were pulling in.
I never thought that would come back and haunt me. For 20 years.
I was too young to be taped.
I first realized that these girls were minors when I got arrested. Joe was out of control.
He's been a fugitive for a decade now.
Do you feel bad for the girls?
Did you imagine that one day you'd be sitting in a chair to talk about Girls Gone Wild?
I figured at some point I'd get a knock on the door.
The 90s were such a different time. Can you imagine that trying to happen today?
Would never happen.
No.
Also, things that can't happen today are revealed in Cher's new memoir, two-part memoir, Cher the Memoir. A lot of stories. One is this, and this kind of reminds me of when we interviewed Warren Beatty. She was 15, okay? She encountered Warren Beatty after he cut her off while driving on Sunset Boulevard. Then guess what? He was 25. He invited her to his home in Beverly Hills, leading to a late-night swim and a kiss. Well, the next day, when he invited her to dinner, Cher's mother was enamored upon hearing that it was, of course, Warren Beatty, because she thought she was going to get in trouble. She was 15. I think she got home at like 4 a.m. or something. I was reading the excerpt. But yeah, Warren Beatty didn't care she was 15. Maybe he didn't even know.
Why didn't she do the obvious, keep it simple, and just call the book Cher? Share.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Well, I mean, why? It would have been she's such an icon.
God, that's actually brilliant.
She should have just, keep it simple and sweet, and they would have gotten the double,
Mm-hmm. We talked about Richard Gere, flipping the bird on the Today Show with Savannah Guthrie. But when he was talking to her, they were talking about his new show. He also talked about the piano scene in Pretty Woman and how it was completely improvised.
My character needed some help just to make it a little more interesting and some more depth. And he said, well, what do you do when you're in a hotel? I said, I find a piano. And it's late at night, no one's there. It's the guy sweeping the floor and me. And I said, okay, well, let's do something with that. We just made a scene.
And you composed the piece?
Well, I just improvised one right there.
Wow.
And then they gave me a composed by. People expect me to be able to play that again. I said, I don't know.
You were just riffing.
I just play it, yeah.
It's pretty amazing that Richard Gere is doing TV.
I know. Because we haven't seen him in a while. And, I love when actors, though, go back and talk about an iconic scene like that. And then you find out the real story. Yeah. John Krasinski still making the rounds. Barnes, I'm sorry. People magazine's sexiest man alive, John Krasinski. Well, he was asked what the best prank that Jim pulled on him on Dwight on The Office
was when I took Dwight's handset of his phone and filled it with nickels. And slowly over time, it got heavier and heavier. And then I took them out and he hit himself in the face. There was something so maniacal about that prank that I thought that was one of the smartest, funniest things anyone's ever written. And I was just proud to be a part of it.
Gotta admit, he's such a likable guy, right?
Totally.
Hey, speaking of memoirs, guess who else has a memoir out?
Who?
If you would have told me, John Stamos. Yeah. He also talks about the level of excitement from, his female fans as they've gotten older.
Going on this last book tour, you'd see a lot of these women in their 50s and, late 50s, like screaming like schoolgirls. And I realized, I guess they were the same girls maybe did that when they're 18, when they were younger. Now they're in their 50s and sometimes these, girls just grab me and start doing something. And I go like, that's my wife right there. And Caitlin's, super cool about it. But.
Did they wake him up from a nap for that interview? Sounded like he was like bedside.
It is funny how fans don't care. There's no personal space. They're still grabbing him after all these years. Well, this was a revelation. Denzel Washington recently shared a personal milestone. He's been sober for 10 years. Did an interview with Esquire, opened about his drinking habits, revealing that he used to consume 2 bottles of wine every day, leading to significant damage to his body. Well, now he's 69. He said, that was the late 90s, wine being his choice of beverage. He even went as far as to build a 10,000 bottle wine cellar. I guess when you're into wine, you are into wine.
Yeah, you go hardcore, but 2 bottles a day, I mean, to some people, in Buckhead, they're like,
In Buckhead, yeah.
That's just an appetizer.
Well, he's turning 70 next month, so he's like, I want to be Denzel. I thought about you, the finale of Survivor, 47, a groundbreaking 2-part event. It's going to air over 2 weeks. Part 1 will air December 11th, followed by Part 2, December 18th. Each episode will last 2 hours, making the total runtime for the finale 4 hours.
The ground broke for me earlier this year, and I finally moved on because it has become too soft.
What? It has become too soft?
Way too PC, and it's really controlled the show. Like he doesn't, all the things combined. If you've ever watched it, Jeff had a certain edge to him, and now he's just complacent and just we're so sorry. It's just not the same show anymore, in my opinion. I still loved so many seasons, but not feeling it.
Well, I'm kind of shocked because I thought you were a huge fan.
I am a huge fan, but I think they need to get back to being edgy and not so worried about every single thing out there.
Edgy.
Like
Survivor.
it's so PC now that it's just not fun.
Well, that is Barnes' take on Survivor, and that is your Celebrity Sleaze.
Just the current Survivor. All right, we'll meet Sky Estroff next. She is an Atlanta foodie. We're going to talk food next week on Thanksgiving in case you don't want to do it at home. She's got some ideas. Next on 99X.